All right. Hello, and welcome to the Cypress City Council Candidate Forum for 2022, brought to you by the Cypress Chamber of Commerce. My name is Tim Keenan, and I serve on the board of the Cypress Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a former city council member and a former mayor of the city of Cypress. Events like this are not possible without the help of our supporters and sponsors. And this year, our event is sponsored by Kinetic Mortgage of Cypress, Cypress College, Ecos, Forest Lawn, SoCal Gas, Goodwin Logistics, and the Orange County Breeze. We're so excited to see such an enthusiastic crowd for our electoral process and the election this year. And thanks to all of you for making the effort to register and come out for this evening for this candidate forum. And a special thank you to Cypress College tonight for hosting our forum here on campus. Before we start, we're going to hear a welcome message from the president of Cypress College, Dr. Joanna Schilling. Please give her a warm welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Tim, and welcome to all of you. I'm very impressed that all of you have come out tonight, and I'm even more impressed with our 6 candidates tonight. You know, it takes a lot of courage to run for elected office. So all of you are to be commended. And this is what democracy is about. It's having differing views. It's serving our community. And I'm just really grateful to be in a community like Cypress College. It's like Cypress, the city of Cypress. But speaking of Cypress College, you know, this is also what we must do in higher education is we debate, we talk about issues, we are engaged in our community, we learn from one another. So it is our great honor to host this candidate forum at Cypress College tonight. And we are just very grateful that you are here with us tonight. So thank you, Tim, and thank you to the Chamber. I don't know if you all know, but the Chamber actually has their offices here at Cypress College. We are a community college. We serve our community just as you are part of our community. So it is my pleasure to be here tonight. And thank you, Tim, for asking me to say a few words. Welcome.
And Dr. Schilling, thank you for being our landlord. We appreciate that. We have a benevolent landlord. We have a beautiful facility here on campus. You probably saw the signage when you came in. They let us put up, signs on the door. You met our executive administrator out front, Megan Cow. She mans the office and answers the phone part-time. We're not back up to full-time post-COVID, so we're doing what we can with what we have. So, which brings me to what the Chamber of Commerce is all about. The Cypress Chamber is a business support organization that helps promote our local business community and provide networking opportunities. We participate in the annual Cypress Community Festival that's happening this coming weekend by organizing the Business Expo. We also host a monthly networking breakfast with a guest speaker each month on the second Tuesday of the month. In October, our guest speaker is County Supervisor Andrew Doe. You may not know this, but Cypress is now in the 1st district for the County of Orange, and Supervisor Doe is our county representative. So we're going to have a chance to meet him in a couple of weeks. Also in October, on Tuesday, October 18th, the Cypress Chamber of Commerce is co-producing the annual State of the City program with the City of Cypress. Visit cypresschamber.org to register for this important community event, and check our website for lots of other informative networking events. So this evening, our former moderator will be Cypress Chamber Board member Lisa Davis, escrow officer from Starcrest Escrow in Cypress. So please welcome Lisa Davis.
Thank you, and welcome to the 2022 Cypress City Council Candidates Forum. For well over 4 decades, the Cypress Chamber has hosted the election cycle candidates forum for the City Council, and we're happy to present a live event this year. Because of considerations for the limited amount of participants, we are also taping this event to air on social media for viewing until the November 8th election. We have 7 candidates this year for 3 available seats. Our candidates for 2022 are David Burke, Kerry Hayashita, Helen Lee, Terry Miller, Scott Menikis, Bonnie Pete, and Rachel Strong. Due to a work conflict, at Homeland Security, Scott Minikis is unable to join us this evening. The format for the 2022 Candidates Forum is as follows. We have done a random drawing this evening to select the order in which each candidate will take their turn to address the audience. First, we'll have 90-second opening remarks from each candidate in their selected order. Then we'll proceed with questions submitted ahead of time by Cypress businesses and residents via email and on your cards this evening. Each candidate will answer each question in an allotted time. Chamber Board Member George O'Hara is here in the audience to signal the timings to the candidates. We will not be asking any question that were aimed at one specific candidate, but rather general questions for all the candidates to cover. And we'll be rotating who goes first with each question. At the end, we'll wrap up with closing statements starting in the reverse order that they started. Are we ready? We'll hear our first opening statement from Helen Lee.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much for making this trip out tonight, and Cypress College for hosting this event, and the Cypress Chamber of Commerce. My name is Helen Lee, and I'm running for Cypress City Council. I went to school at UCLA, studied mathematics. From there, I went into the banking and wealth management industry, serving as an administrator for managed trust and investment relationships. From there, I looked for my first home. I found Cyprus. The internet was young, but I could see some data online, and I saw there are quality schools here. So we moved, and I got into a condo. With my son, he came over 10 years later. Life took a turn, and basically that had me spend more time at home, more time in our condominium association. And you would think that everyone would get along, but there was a lot of contention. I was shocked when I started to come to city council meetings, and there were deep divisions and residents not always being heard. Well, I have a record of building communities, building divisions, healing from them. And having all resident voices heard regardless of background. We need to rebuild, we need to build and expand smartly, and we need to heal and not get off track. So I pray for our current council, but as well as the election, I hope to earn your vote. I'd be honored. Thank you.
And then just start okay. So I'm Kerry Katsumata Hayashita, and I'm running for Cypress City Council. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the generous sponsors for hosting us tonight. Very different than 2020, and thankfully I can't get disconnected this time. For 27 years, I've lived the good life in Cyprus, raising 3 boys. And we've enjoyed all the activities, good schools, great people. And that's what we love about Cyprus. I volunteered for the Cypress and Anaheim Unified School Districts, room parent, band mom, team mom, VP of hospitality, you name it, but they all have great memories for my family and time I wouldn't trade for anything. I ran in 2020 because I felt that it was time that I could serve the community. My youngest was at college, and my 2-year deacon term at church had just ended. With overwhelming support, that placed me in 3rd out of 9 candidates in 2020. It brought me here again tonight to ask for your vote. And so I plan to be an active council member and collaborating and monitoring progress optimistically as we grow through the pandemic recovery. This summer, I was able to participate in the Cypress Citizens Academy, and I had the opportunity to meet city personnel and learn about the operations of the city. It was a great experience. It's an exciting time in Cyprus, right? Who's not happy about Trader Joe's? And I look forward to representing you. And you can look at my website, Kerry4Cypress.com.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Pete. I'm a 50-year resident of Cyprus. My education, I got my AA degree from Cypress College, then went to Cal State Fullerton and got my degree in finance. I'm a successful businesswoman. I had a 35-year career at Parker Hannifin in Irvine, where I worked in their aerospace, and for 25 of those years was in some leadership position. I'm married to John, who's currently a council member, and we've been married for 36 years. And Michael, we have a son, Michael, who's 30 years old and has special needs. I'm involved in the community. I'm on the board of trustees for Cypress School District. I've been since 2018. I've been president. This is my second year as president. I'm president of the Women's Club of Cypress for the second year. And I'm also a ministry leader at Seacoast Grace Church. I'm running for city council to use my leadership experience to preserve the values and the characteristics of the city that I love and that I was raised in. My priorities as a city council member, should I be elected, is to ensure Cypress PD remains staffed and funded. I will use my business experience to ensure we remain financially healthy. And I will support investing in recreation facilities and provide programs and services for all ages, as well as maintain infrastructure. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you, Cypress College, for hosting, and the chamber. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Strong and I'm running for city council. I am an almost lifelong resident of our beautiful city. I am the proud mom of a 10-year-old son. I am caring for my aging parent. I own a small business here in Cyprus that supports children and families. I've served on our senior commission and I am the chairperson of our school site council. I love Cyprus with all my heart. It is a place of both tradition and progress. Despite the growth I've seen it experience over my lifetime here, it still retains an amazing small town feel. It's become a richly diverse neighborhood with many ethnicities and many faiths. My hope is to secure a seat on city council to help navigate the issues we're going to face that will affect how the city looks and feels for the next 5 to 10 years and beyond. My concerns as I run are transparency and accountability, the looming threat of a potential lawsuit regarding districting, maintaining vigilance over vendor contracts, protecting our precious budget surplus, balancing Sacramento's aggressive housing mandate and encouraging growth while still not overwhelming our landscape, and of course, public safety. This is kind of a long list, but as our constituents have shown, when they're combined with a collaborative city council, they are more than capable of making the decisions necessary to maintain and enhance all that Cyprus is now and our future. And collaboratively together, I believe we can do this. So I humbly ask for your vote this election. Thank you.
We have one little technical thing we want to fix. Did you want to fix that, Henry? Sure. Terry, go ahead. Oh, touch screen. There you go.
Yeah, so the screen here is touch. So.
Good to know, good to know. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Terry Miller. I've been a resident and active member of the community for just short of 10 years now with my wife, Jennifer, 2 children, Allison and William. My wife and I are both Orange County natives, and when it came to decide on a place to plant our roots and grow our family, we both agreed that Cypress was the best choice. We have a wonderful, welcoming community with real close-knit culture, a strong police first responder presence, dozens of parks, top-rated schools, well-rounded youth sports, wonderful programs, and this is just what we saw peripherally as a young couple. You know, over the years, I've come to realize we have great, senior centers, community events, concerts at the Green, holiday events, and so much more. Most importantly, though, the city has funding, supporting infrastructure, and talent to make this happen. These wonderful resources really allowed us the luxury of getting ourselves established, our careers in order, to build our family and our home, and to allow us to give our children a strong community base to build their formative years. By trade, I manage large-scale network implementation projects and lead teams of engineers and professionals, handling budgets, timelines, and seeing projects through to completion on time and in budget. I also manage a few small businesses, one in vintage electronics and computer restoration. I do things for like computer museums, things like that, old mainframes. And I also do have one in the InfoSec realm. Can't really talk about that one. I believe my set of skills and experience would be a valuable asset to our city. As a council member, I can leverage both using facts and logic to create effective solutions while approaching these solutions from a place of compassion and empathy, something that many I feel are lacking currently.
Touch the screen.
All right, well, thank you to the chamber for hosting. Thank you to everyone who showed up and submitted questions. This is a beautiful thing, democracy in action. I'm David Burke, and I'm a business owner. I'm an attorney and the founder of a nonprofit called Citizens Take Action that fights against big money in politics and for more transparency in government. I live here in Cyprus with my wife, Courtney, and our son, Adam. And I'm running for city council because I have a lifelong passion for public service. My dad was a high school government teacher. I quit playing high school sports to join the Constitution team. I wasn't that good, so it wasn't a big loss to the sports team coaches, but it worked out for me. And I want to make sure that Cyprus is a great place to live for every single resident. So that means prioritizing the things that matter most: public safety, fiscal responsibility, great parks, community events like the concerts on the green or the holiday celebrations. I think that one thing that makes me unique among my fellow candidates is my track record of fighting for government integrity and accountability. I literally wrote a guide to integrity in local government, and I will lead the fight here for safeguards that protect us from undue influence by special interests, let us know whose money is really behind our elected officials. I will also strive to improve communication between city council members and residents, and focus on solving problems and avoiding political distractions. So I'm looking forward to the discussion with my fellow candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now we'll start with your questions. In order to get through as many questions as possible, we ask you hold your applause until we finish all questions. We will start with Helen Lee. Question 1. How long have you currently lived in Cyprus continuously? And how have you been involved in the Cyprus community, or where else have you volunteered your time in your past?
I've been a Cyprus resident for next month, 22 years. And as far as my service to the community, I have volunteered at my kids' schools. That's King Elementary, Landell Elementary, Cawthon, and oh my gosh, Luther. There was a lot of bouncing around. I had a child in special education, so we went where the services were. As far as for over 17 years, I've been on the board of directors for my homeowners association. And that is where, like a quasi-government that got a lot of training with different law firms. And that is what I could bring to city council. The transparency, the accountability, the bringing together of residents while maintaining and staying on track with the business agenda. Working together collaboratively with others. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm Kerry again, and I have volunteered at my students, my kids' schools, Cypress School District, Luther Elementary, 6th grade parent, and also was key in facilitating a $1,000 Sam's Club grant for the library renovation, which was pretty exciting. Also for Anaheim Unified School District, Walker Junior High School, I did a term on school site council while they were talking about the remodel that was going to be happening there. And then I also volunteered on campus during lunch hours and was a band chaperone again. At Kennedy, I was a team parent and also helped with fundraising for the youth sports as well as the band. And then recently, I went through the Cyprus Citizens Academy, as I mentioned earlier, and I've been involved with the California Policy Center and CLIA, which is the California Local Elected Officials, and they're beyond Cyprus, but they're also very key with regards to what's happening in Cyprus.
All right, I've lived in Cyprus for 50 years, so 25 years, and then I left to go to Garden Grove, and then 25 years, so a total of 50. I volunteer similar to some of the things I discussed already. I consider my school board position although I'm not elected, it's still a volunteer. I don't get really paid. I'm also on the Women's Club. I volunteer for that and president for the last 2 years. And then I volunteer to be a leader of different ministries within Seacoast Grace for the last 15 years.
All right, well, this is, oh, sorry, very loud. I first want to apologize for screwing up the thing earlier. I'm a little different from other candidates. I actually lived in Cyprus back when, might be politically incorrect, but I was still in an ovary when I got here. I was brought home from the hospital to Cyprus and I grew up in this town. When I was approaching college age, I moved out to go to college. I lived in Long Beach for about 12 years. That was the early part of my college and career phase. When it was time to start a family, there was no place else I'd rather be. So I moved back home to Cyprus to raise my son, start my business, and care for my parents as they get older. Since I've been here, I have volunteered on our school site council. I am the chairperson. I was on the senior commission for 1 year. I'm a frequent volunteer in my son's classroom and around school, and I'm a member of the culture committee at Vessel School. Thank you.
Hello. Well, I've been a resident here for just short of a decade, just short of 10 years now. And I am currently a coach with the Cyprus Youth Pony Baseball League with my son. And I also reside on their executive board. So, trying to help make things happen there. Cyprus is a pretty sports-oriented city, that's for sure. It's quite good. And I currently also assist on the Cyprus Community Festival Board, helping to make that show go. I'm also an active member of the Morris Elementary PTA. And volunteer whenever possible at the events and fundraisers. And my wife, Jennifer, also is the treasurer for the Morris Elementary PTA and is the membership director for the Cyprus Council PTA. Otherwise, I've always volunteered at places like Boys and Girls Club, wherever I've been, always been active in the community. It's, nothing necessarily new, but it is something I've always done.
Thank you. So my wife and I moved to Cyprus with our son over a year ago. And since then, I've tried to be as active in the community as I can. I volunteer with the Cyprus Community Festival, as well as I recently started volunteering at the Senior Center where I help do the Meals on Wheels deliveries. Prior to that, like Bonnie, I served on a neighborhood council, which was an unpaid position in West Los Angeles after graduating from law school. And I've also volunteered over the years at various legal clinics to offer low cost or free legal services to clients. And that's actually something that I'd like to see us try and implement here in Cyprus.
Okay, Kerry, you will be starting this question, the answer for this question. Research by the city of Cyprus has determined that there are no distinct areas in Cyprus that represent singular demographic groups. As you know, the city has chosen to challenge a lawsuit to create voting districts for the city council in Cyprus. What is your opinion of changing from at-large elections to voting by districts?
I am not in support of changing from at-large to districts. From what I've read with the Voting Rights Act, it's for cities that are 100,000 plus residents. We're half of that. I also, for me as a resident, I like to have the choice to be able to choose two council members, and then this year 3 council members. I don't want to give up those rights. And I would hope that Cyprus could continue to be at large and yet just kind of get through a lot of this stuff. One thought that I did have was to do an overlay and do an unofficial district and have a talk with the city council members. Maybe we can rotate. And then that way each person for a certain amount of time could be designated to that district, even if it's not official, and then be able to network with those people.
Similar to Kerry, I support residents being able to vote for all of their leadership of the city. I think that is critical. The lawsuit, the data does not support, at least from what the city has released. If it is demonstrated at some point in time that in fact there is a protected class that is violated for their voting, I think we would need to look at that and really develop a solution. But right now, that is not anything what we've seen or what the data supports. So I stay for at large.
Change is really difficult, and it's extra difficult when it's imposed by an external force. I think that we've seen cities around us go through these same kinds of lawsuits unsuccessfully and then face the ramification of really expensive legal fees. We have great resources in our budget surplus, and that's a huge waste of the careful decisions that were made by generations before us. I think we could be proactive and get in front of this situation by collaborating a little bit more with residents and trying to understand what would serve our public best. Although we're a small community and we're ethnically blended, we do have different concerns in different parts of town. In the north part of town, there's concern about the maintenance yard. In the south part of town, there's a higher prevalence of coyote sightings. An individualized district, a district representation would allow you to have a stronger voice at the dais, and perhaps a hybrid situation where we elect a mayor at large would be a great compromise. Right now, we don't currently elect the mayor. They are appointed by the seated council. So you wouldn't be reducing your voting rights. You'd actually be expanding them. If you can vote a mayor in, you can vote a mayor out. I think there are lots of options, but we should collaborate to make this decision.
Where to begin? Okay. I think my honest opinion is that a lot of this information should have been given to us earlier in the year, and we probably should have seen this on the November ballot so we all could have voted on it together. But that being said, we are here. I believe that districting works reasonably well in larger cities, but it's shown its flaws when scaled down in smaller municipalities. There's been an article last week on the OC Register where there was 82 uncontested seats across the county, mainly due to districting. So it really sort of comes down to a situation where, do you want to feel underrepresented or do you want to be misrepresented? I mean, in this particular case, it just doesn't work at scale. I feel like they came in pretty hot. They kind of came in with this, do this wonderful thing, we'll obliterate you financially. People's base, feeling is going to be defiance to that. Now I'm up for hearing both sides of the story. I want to explore more, but as it stands right now, I don't believe it is in our best interest to convert because there's too many unknown variables in doing so. We know we have the good and the bad of it. Oh.
As a voter, I think reasonable minds can disagree over whether you prefer districts or at large. With districts, I like the fact that elections are less expensive and it makes it easy for somebody to win without spending $40,000 or $50,000. But I understand that with at large, we might want to find a backup. Okay. I understand that with at large, you get to vote for more candidates and you allay the concern about not having a good candidate in a district. But that's as a voter. As an attorney, we have to accept the legal situation we're in, which is that no city ever prevailed in one of these lawsuits. And the standard of whether we can draw a majority-minority district, that's not the legal standard right now. That might change with a California Supreme Court decision that we need to monitor. But given the record of cities that have spent $5 or $6 million and lost these lawsuits, and our situation where we're struggling to retain police officers and our firefighters don't have a contract, I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to spend $5 or $10 million on a lawsuit that we're not likely to win. So I think we should consider a resolution, whether it's districts, a combination, or at large with ranked choice voting or cumulative voting.
Okay, Bonnie, this question will start with you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Helen. Apologize.
Thank you. As far as at-large elections, that's what we've been under. But is all of Cyprus, all residents and all neighborhoods being represented fully and fairly? As I've canvassed and met lots of residents, especially in the northern part of Cyprus, north of Lincoln, north of Crescent, south of Lincoln, they don't feel represented. They don't feel heard. They've been voicing things sometimes for years. The redevelopment, the improvements of the city, they don't look the same in the northern part of Cyprus. One claim is Cyprus is a very small city. If it's so small, why can't our city be fully and fairly represented and all voices heard no matter their background? I think the numbers the cost benefit analysis should speak for itself. This is not a winning situation as far as the lawsuit. I think we need to do what is best for our city. Thank you.
Our city is one of only a few cities in Orange County that does not have a utility tax or an additional sales tax beyond the 7.75%. This has been good for attracting residents, business, and out-of-town shoppers. Will you pledge to oppose any future sales tax increases or the addition of a utility tax? And please explain your position.
Okay, yes. So yes, I would oppose doing any new sales tax or anything for our businesses or our residents. From my perspective, there are other revenues that we can get that could be through new housing, other businesses that come into Cyprus, which is part of the overall strategic plan. If you look at the strategic plan, they have a very good plan of the fact the city right now is trying to hire a business development person to bring in businesses and to let people know what we can offer. So I believe there are other options that we can do. And I am not thinking at all that taxes is one of them. It's really through other revenue streams.
I'm opposed to this. This is an easy question. And there's lots of reasons why. Cyprus has a history of sound fiscal policy and conservative, prudent financial decisions. And I think that that's one that we should work to continue. It's a great legacy for our town. We are surrounded by other cities that are bankrupt, yet we enjoy an astronomical surplus. I want to say it's around $180 million. That is a great deal of money. The reality is we don't need to raise taxes right now on residents and homeowners. We have brand new developments coming in terms of new businesses, small businesses being developed near the racetrack property, and the housing mandate, which will require we provide additional housing, which will come with property tax revenue streams. I don't think we're in a position to need to increase taxes right now, and I'm against it. I think that we can wait for these other developments to happen and provide new revenue for our city.
Let me just start off with the fact that I am vehemently opposed to raising taxes in any way. I mean, we have a good surplus. There's really no reason. We're currently in a good place financially, in many ways because of healthy and thoughtful approach to managing finances and budgets from people long before us. Even if the tides begin to change and we see a shift in financial direction, I believe there are many other creative alternatives that can be explored and implemented before we increase utility or sales taxes. My belief is that in most cases, this ultimately ends up driving away consumers and businesses anyways, and it's really not the time to be doing either.
Get there at distance. So I think like my fellow candidates, I consider raising taxes or new taxes and fees a matter of last resort. But the truth is, we all had a briefing with city staff, all the candidates, and we were informed that if we continue on the trajectory we're on, spending more money than we're taking in, then raising taxes is going to have to be on the table. So of course, what we want to do is forestall that. Part of that is increasing revenue, as some of my other candidates have suggested. And I think we need a proactive approach. Hiring a business manager is a good start. But this is an area where I really think it's important to hear from residents. We have Trader Joe's coming in. That's a business a lot of people wanted. And I think it's going to do well here. I think our next surveys should ask you, what other businesses do you want here? What other restaurant chains? What do we need here in Cyprus that we don't have yet that's going to produce revenue and help us forestall tax increases? In addition to trying to fight against wasteful spending, I think that's our best approach.
I see zero need to raise taxes in our city. We enjoy the low taxes. We're going to keep them going. We have an incredible surplus. There's a lot of boasting about our financial soundness here in the city of Cyprus. But I saw a very quick brush waving of the wand with a park improvement going from 15 million to 20 million in one shot. When we make decisions like that, and it's because the reason was because of the inflationary times, let's forecast ahead. What was the justification? Where were the facts? Where were the numbers? Where was the data? that supported that. It's decisions like that and the trash contract where we are losing not only over 220,000, but the free graffiti removal that we lost, add to that 130,000+. That's 350,000+ we have been losing every year since that was approved in 2017. That was unnecessary. We even had an evaluation say that.
Okay, so I've been told I need to hold the mic closer, so I'm looking for that optimal spot. I do not support a utility tax or raising sales tax at all. I do want Cyprus to work to consider more businesses along Lincoln instead of more high density housing or medium density housing, in order for the surrounding area residents to be able to go and spend money and enjoy themselves. Coach's Corner just came in. I can go and walk and get a pizza and watch some football, and I appreciate that. I think that there are a lot of areas in Cyprus that could use more of that type of business, which will raise sales tax, and it will give us more income, because it would be nice. We do have more homes coming in, so that's property tax, but I want to see the business tax, sales tax stay comparable with it.
Okay, this question will go with Rachel first. As a Chamber of Commerce, we recognize that having a strong business community in Cyprus helps keep our taxes low. How would you propose that we attract new businesses and retain our existing business base?
This is a great question because we're in tricky post-pandemic times. We've got a major industrial corridor along Catella that it looks like is outdated and its heyday may have come and gone. It's time for us to start looking at what we could possibly do to carve up some of our existing industrial space and welcome new businesses into Cyprus. We need to investigate if there's any truth to the rumors that we're hearing that Cyprus landlords are expensive and unwilling to compromise. And we need to see if we can address these issues with negotiation and collaboration instead of just taking a firm stance and refusing to redevelop. I think it's time to consider this to bring in new revenue to the city and to keep our businesses strong. I personally have a small business in the city, and because it's such a wonderful place to locate a business, it's seen nothing but success. That kind of growth is possible for other small businesses. We just need to connect the dots for them.
I will basically say a similar sentiment in that we need to be looking at sort of the overlays and things that we're doing in the business park currently. There's probably a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can possibly be doing there. As the state, as the climate is changing business wise, we are losing businesses due to basically things going on in Sacramento. People are leaving California. So we've got to figure out for the remaining businesses, what do we do to sweeten the pot? So, I've been thinking we need to continue to expand our relationship with this Chamber of Commerce. They've really done a great job at keeping business going through the pandemic thus far, and we'll be working as close as we can to augment and facilitate wherever possible. I was looking at some of the past things, and we've had in the past we've worked with them, and we had 3 separate groups that basically targeted different businesses within the city, like your top revenue generating, your smaller ones, and we were very targeted about what we did to basically work with them and expand them and figure out what worked best for them. I think we sort of need to bring that back. I feel like we're not really doing as close of a job as we can working with them to basically augment and make sure that we're doing what we can.
Well, I guess I spoke a little bit to this with my previous answer about having a proactive approach in recruiting the kind of businesses that we want in the city, that residents want, that are going to do well here. But I also think that means a proactive approach to retaining business. And, if it were up to me, we would make sure that our council members and our city staff had a list in their heads of the top 25 revenue producing businesses for the city, and that we were proactively doing preventative medicine to make sure we didn't lose them, whether that means checking in with them more consistently, incorporating them into city events, or just sitting down one-on-one for conversations, making sure, okay, do you have everything you need? What can we be doing differently? What can we do to make sure that you stay here for the long haul? Perhaps that might have helped us avoid losing some of the businesses we have over the years. So I think, preventative medicine, in addition to a proactive approach, will help us retain and recruit new businesses.
I think we're fortunate in Cyprus to have some key businesses such as the Costco, et cetera. What we do need are those anchor stores, anchor merchants. But we have seen many, a handful of big businesses go. As far, when we bring in big business, there's an impact to our residents, our neighborhoods. There's the concern of traffic, air pollution. We really need to take a holistic approach. As much as our city has expanded and developed and open space taken up, this has been done without a planning commission. I would like to look into that. That means changing some legislation or local legislation, and but doing it smartly. So planning the big businesses amongst small businesses, and also addressing the housing situation with that, traffic included, and also bring in sustainable requirements.
Okay, so recently I spoke with the city manager because we have seen a lot of businesses, big businesses leave within the past couple of years, most recently Siemens even. And so according to him, a lot of it has to do with the modernization, the need for modernization, and what businesses are looking for with the change, the economic change due to COVID and things like that. And there's also, you talk to other people and sometimes you hear people say, well, Cyprus isn't necessarily easy to work with. Okay, so as council member, it would be key to find out, if it is difficult, can we be more helpful? If it's not, then great, and we'll keep going. 20 seconds. Okay. But I do think we need to go out and we need to make Cyprus as attractive as possible. And part of that, I'd like to see some employee housing possibly in the area. And I think that would kind of double whammy. It'd help with, darn.
Let me just continue. I'm going to start with retain. We talked a little bit about taxes earlier, and clearly inflation has hurt everybody, including our local businesses. And I think I heard a couple of droppings about this, about really understanding what their needs are and how we can help them and keep them in Cyprus, including employees. And one of the things I had heard in the past is Cyprus hasn't been real attractive for employees, especially young employees, to live. So what can we do to attract also and keep their employees locally so that they can also attract them? From an attracting standpoint, I talked about the business development and really understanding the benefits of Cyprus. Cyprus is a great city. I think we all know it's a great city. I think really understanding what that is, what it means, and what the benefits are for the business, and put our perspective in their perspective. Thank you.
Okay, Terry, you will start with this question. How are you funding your campaign? Are groups or independent donors spending money on your behalf without donating to your actual campaign fund?
Certainly not that I'm aware of. When it comes to campaign fund, I mean, please do not. Almost all of my campaign funds are basically coming from family, friends, and my own bank account. Honestly, you bet on yourself in this kind of stuff. I mean, in local elections, there's not a lot of money to be had. I'm a strong proponent of campaign finance reform. I have pledged it, if I were to accept any donations from a corporation, union, or entity, that I will ensure that they are listed on my website and social media. And as such, I would be forced to abstain from anything that involved them. If somebody were to give me money, I can't vote on their behalf. I mean, that's, it's collusion. I'm not going to do it. As of today, the only donations that I know of, outside of my family and friends and myself, are from my local and state party. And that's really just because they're, they believe in me and they believe in what I can do. But, even that will be listed on my website. And I promise if they come to build a bar or anything, I won't vote on their liquor license. But otherwise, no, it's all local.
I'm proud to say that, to the best of my knowledge, campaign contributions from Cyprus residents. So what is the? Thank you. I knew it was Terry. I'm proud to say that I believe I've received more campaign contributions from Cyprus residents than any candidate in the last 2 election cycles. And that means a lot to me because I take the responsibility of representing the city seriously. And I'm passionate about campaign finance reform and not being beholden to special interests. Other than that, it's largely self-funding and a little bit of money from some groups that have endorsed me. But I want to make a comment. I watched the 2020 candidate forum to prep for this. So many candidates talked about getting grassroots funding. They weren't going to take money from special interests, and then they all lost. And that's because we have a broken campaign finance system. And we need to make changes so that people can win an election in Cyprus without spending $40,000 of money or relying on help. That's top priority. Make sure that it's more of a locally funded election.
So as far as funding from individuals within Cyprus and beyond in Orange County, as far as groups that have endorsed me, funding in that sense, but from organizations where I share the same values, and they have supported my campaign. I will not accept campaign funds from corporations. I will not accept campaign funds from businesses that I don't believe they have business practices that I do not support. I believe in good paying jobs. I am also supported by labor unions. I believe in the workforce, and I believe when there are issues such as with the teachers within our local Cypress school district, it is because they were able to galvanize within their union that they could be stronger together.
Okay, so for my campaign, no PAC money, no party money, no business money. It's residents, family and friends, and my own money. And I think that's it.
I'm pretty well self-funded thus far. I submitted my 460 yesterday, so it'll become public sometime next week. So far, I think 90% has been from residents within Cyprus. I am going after a couple of endorsements right now, which may have some funding attached, but that hasn't come through fruition yet. So at this point, I'm pretty much self-funded.
I work with kids, and one of the things I try to impress upon them is your strongest and first supporter should be yourself. I'm largely self-funded. My campaign is funded to the tune of approximately 95% by myself. I have accepted some small donations from local residents, mostly people that used to cheer for me on the soccer field when I was a really little kid. I'm not taking any kind of supplemental money from businesses. I don't want to seem like I'm beholden to any sort of special interest. I have been endorsed by the Orange County Fire Authority, but as yet that has not been given with any promise of funding of any kind. That will be published if in fact that does happen, but I prefer to be my biggest proponent and my own biggest advocate.
Okay, this question will start with David. Over the years, residents have expressed concerns about overdevelopment in Cyprus. The state has stepped in and passed many laws quashing the ability for city planners to have local control of density and parking. How do you stand on density and the imposing of additional dwelling units or ADUs into our residential neighborhoods? What would be your approach?
Another thing you'll notice if you watch the 2020 candidate forum is that every candidate talked about fighting against Sacramento's housing density requirements, which I'm not being critical of, but we know the end result is that we just passed the housing element and now have zoning for 3,936 new housing, new residences. So it's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And so I think we need to, the word everybody uses for this is balance. I spent a lot of time at UCLA. I know what it's like to live in a community where someone has to park 10 minutes away to come visit you, or where where it's safe because you have a very unsafe because of a very busy intersection. So I think what we need to do is mitigate the negative impacts we're concerned about. Parking problems, reduction of open space as much as we can, while trying to spread the required units throughout the city, which we're trying to do with the Los Alamitos Race Course and the Lincoln specific plan.
We need to strategically plan smartly. I mentioned before that a planning commission could be of great value. That's not going to happen overnight. Things need to be changed with the charter, but that should be looked into because that would bring residents. It could bring professionals of like engineering, architectural backgrounds, urban planning backgrounds. Basically, we need to make sure that if we want to preserve the character of our neighborhoods, the character of our city, that small town feel, we've got to make sure that we could perhaps be a part of the solution in meeting the housing shortage, the housing crisis. I want to see how this could be a win-win-win situation across the board. But we have to do it with a lot of specialists, a lot of experts involved. I'd like to see how Cyprus could be a part of the solution and not resist and continue the crisis.
Okay, for the overdevelopment, one of the things that I've done is I've been participating in our neighborhood voices. It was started by the mayors of Redondo Beach and Placentia and Yorba Linda. And it's a great opportunity to learn what other local leaders are doing to fight back against Sacramento. And while we may not be able to fight Sacramento, I would like to see us work with other cities and possibly see if there is a fight that could be had. Aside from that, I would prefer not to add more houses at the race course because they've already, I mean, it's 2,900 or something like that they're planning. I like the mixed use over at the business center where they could do some employee housing and that would kind of balance it out and kind of remove the overlay on Lincoln. If not, right now, Lincoln has only had medium density, but they need some mixed use so that we can get some businesses in there.
I'm a strong advocate for local control. In some cases, the state mandates what you have to do. And we did submit our plan. It was approved by the state, which I think everybody said. As a city council member, I will maximize as much as I can the local control, which I know we've already been doing somewhat. I'll ensure that the goals that we have put into our plan already, that we will execute to those to make sure that we are in compliance with the state. However, I also think, as we did when we launched the plan initially, I think we will need to kind of get the community involved as well. I think there were community meetings, letting everybody know what's going on and letting them know the process. And I think that's very valuable and it could be collaborative and other ideas may come from it.
The housing mandate from Sacramento was really aggressive. And just as Bonnie mentioned, proudly, our city was the 7th in Orange County to submit and certify our plan. So we are ahead of the curve on this in Orange County, which is amazing. Now we have to move from the planning phase to the execution and building phase. As David mentioned, we've got to see a balance. So we have to be looking at the opportunity to build some high density and affordable housing alongside single home developments with ADUs if possible. But we also have to consider park and green space. I think that, again, we need to consider some mixed use zoning. So the Lincoln corridor and the area on Catella, these are areas with huge footprints that already have great accommodations for parking. If we were to repurpose that, we could keep the congestion on our streets as low as possible and still satisfy this requirement. Together, we can work with the community on trying to make this happen without changing the quality of life in Cyprus drastically.
I'm more of a proponent of local control as well, in that I can understand the premise and need. And the thing is when we get to something like this, we've currently met the needs that the state has asked. If we're going to push further, we really need to be thoughtful and plan ahead. We have to be thinking about all the infrastructure that goes into this, the sewer, all the there's everything that goes into this. I feel like we're very quick to try and jump in and like meet these mandates. Oh, we must do this. But we can't be knee jerk to this. If we do, we will end up, our city's too small. It wasn't planned for such. You know, if we can come up with solutions, I don't know that the racetrack is. The racetrack is such a large area. I think it would be such waste. I think it'd be to squander it and waste it would not be good. We should be thinking bigger there. Now, I'm not against the idea that, you know, especially as businesses are leaving, we need to think about how we're going to generate that revenue, and more homes certainly does do it. But we need to be thoughtful about what it affects, how it affects the other residents, and what's really going to do to the overall city. I mean, if we just don't plan ahead, we'll be in a sort.
Okay, we're going to start back with Helen. Last I checked, the police department accounted for 57% of the city budget. Would you advocate raising or lowering this figure?
The city, Cypress Police Department is a big part of the budget and has been for quite a while. 40% plus, and more recently 50% plus. Rightfully so, we should invest as what we can, what is necessary. Technology changes, their needs change, their vehicles, their equipment, etc. They put their lives on the line. We don't want to sacrifice or whittle away their needs. And they know best how that should be advancing, upgrading, etc., including the technology, even just with the systems, communications, as well as the frontliners that are in the community. I am not going to answer the 57% question as far as whether it should be changed or not. I think just smart budget planning is the way to go. I think around that 50% number might be okay, but we need to look at the budget overall and go from there.
Okay, so I think right now, I don't think they've asked for an increase in their budget. If we can maintain where we're at, they just got a brand new police station. And so hopefully they've got enough in their budget as it stands now. I do want to make sure that we find funding for their special resource officer that's been going to the junior high school and the high school. The parents, the teachers, the students are all raving about the special resource officer. And if we have a 3-year grant, we have 3 years to find funding so that that person can stay on, because he's he's doing a great service. And if everybody loves him, then we really do need to keep him so that we can keep the students on track and have them have that person that they can go to if they need to. And I would just think that we would just need to reevaluate, but hopefully we can keep it at 57% and not need to go ahead.
So my number one, I've said this over and over, my number one priority is public safety. And of course, our Cypress Police Department is the biggest part of the budget for the city. And I don't know if it's 57 or 52 or whatever it is. I do know they're in negotiations right now. I have no idea where they're at. However, I'm well aware that we are losing and we're not able to attract excellent police officers due to competition of other cities. So the challenge is, how do we do that? And so I would say if it's whatever it is, I have a feeling we're gonna have to increase in the budget. I don't know if it's 57% or 55%. But we do need to make sure that we have an attractive package that we are able to retain and attract police officers. With regards to the smart budgeting, I absolutely agree with Helen. You have to look at it from a budget standpoint and figure out how you fund it.
I have to agree. If the question is whether to increase or decrease the budget, my answer is neither. I think that there's a reason why Cypress has such a wonderful police force and such a great relationship between residents and our local officers. I think part of that is trying to provide the right opportunity for our police officers, but there is a retention issue. We need to make sure we're retaining and attracting great officers and funding our youth programs so that we can stop crime before it starts by having a great relationship that reaches down into the youngest generations so that they feel like they're confident in our local police force as well and they don't view them as a bad guy. I think that we need to maintain these current programs. I think that in terms of looking at the budget and taking a hard look at it, they've got a brand new facility, which will hopefully help us retain and attract new talent. Hopefully that will be enough to get us through the next little bit without increasing the budget. But if we do need to make cuts, we need to look carefully at where those might be and still maintain our wonderful relationship with our police force.
So the good news is that they are currently in negotiations, and given the emails that I've got this week, it looks like things are probably going good. So probably out of our hands before we get there. But that being said, we really do have a good police force. I mean, our chief of police lives in the city. You can't really beat that. I mean, does anybody have any complaints? I can't really ask the crowd, but I really doubt there is. I mean, we've got a great police force. Everything is running really well on that front. We always need to be thoughtful about how the funds are allocated and where they're coming from and all that. But I will also say that given the current state of affairs, especially here in California, we need to be thoughtful of the fact that they're going to need money for retention and making sure they have good talent. If we don't do that, we could easily find ourselves in a real sort. I mean, the number one thing of, what makes a society is protection. I mean, otherwise we'd go live out in the woods on our own. So, we have to be thoughtful of that. I mean, we don't want to lose talent, and we don't want to basically lose our wall. Thank you.
There are sort of two core reasons, in my view, that people stay in Cyprus or move to Cyprus, and that's probably public safety and schools. And so those are absolutely. Yeah, Tim said it was Terry's fault. I apologize. So, no, so public safety is critically important, as are our schools, and you've got to prioritize them above all else, in my opinion. And so, as other candidates have said, I've spoken to some of our Cypress officers, including Chief Lauterbach. Retention and recruitment is a problem, is a challenge, as it is with firefighters, as it is with private businesses right now. So I'm not going to talk about a specific dollar amount, but whatever the police budget needs to be for us to retain and recruit an effective police force, that's what I'm going to support.
Okay, we'll start with Kerry. What do you feel needs improvement in our city?
In 1 minute.
60 seconds.
Needs improvement. Okay, so city council on Monday, it would be nice if the city council could get along. And I know we're all keeping them in prayer and praying that they can. Okay, I would like to see, even though the school district is separate from the city council, I would like to see more interaction. Because if the city council can help out with the school district, it would be nice to know that that can happen. What else can I take audience participation? I would like to see water reclamation, which I've heard is going to happen at Arnold Park. So I'm hoping that that is going to start water reclamation, because we do have 21 parks and we could save a lot of water that way. So things like that. I'd like to see more bike lanes for the kids that are safer. And I think I'm going to stop.
I think honestly, my number one is the city council getting along. It's been a challenge, and I have never seen anything like it. And it disrupts. It's unproductive. I'll just say it that way. I think as a city council, if you ask and say, well, what do you do about it? And clearly you have to have 5 members. They won't all agree. There's no question. We don't all agree. However, there has to be trust, and there has to be a collaboration and a willingness to work together. So I'm going to put that as my number one and only right now. Thanks.
I have to concur. I think the biggest, most glaring issue is the climate at City Hall. I think that the council members that are seated now are combative with each other, as well as combative with residents that come in if they're voicing dissenting opinions or concerns. I think that that's a real shame. I think that we need to focus on better communication in the city of Cyprus. We have an app for Cyprus. Does anybody use it? It's a wonderful app. It's a great resource. We could be putting so much more resources behind that and putting more things on it so people stay connected. I also think that we should make a bigger deal out of the fact that Cyprus is a leader in so many things. We should be taking pride in the fact that we meet so many milestones as a community. This is a great place to live, and I think it leads the communities around it, and we should continue to emphasize that and talk about it.
I'll echo the same sentiments. I'll give you a quick top three. I think the number one, obviously, being the issues in the dais. The thing is, I'll take it similar to when I'm coaching a baseball team. If us as coaches are fighting up top, it trickles down to the community. We've got a lot of, there's a lot of divide and everything else going on, and we've really got to patch a lot of that up. We can do better. Number two, I'll say is financials. Right now, everything is quite good. But we need to think about, and I want to hold this down here so I don't somehow mess this up, apparently. We need to think about weathering the storm ahead. Our economical, everything's kind of changing. We need to make sure that we are poised to change with it. You see bonds and other things crashing out. We just got to make sure we're in a good sort. We don't want to get caught out. Number three, I would say businesses, as we spoke earlier. We got to think about growing them. We got to think about sweetening the deal to get new people in. We need to be working with the community to figure out what you guys want and working to try and get that. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to generate revenue in any ways other than raising taxes, because nobody wants that.
I think we. Yeah, it might be something about this area.
Yeah.
I think. Is it the seat or the mic? No.
I held it a lot.
You did.
Testing.
All right. So the city council, we need to enact safeguards against special interest money and have more transparency of campaign finance. So we all have confidence that the decisions are not based on who spent money to influence elections. They're based on what's best for the city. We need to stop courting lawsuits. Just this Monday, I spoke at a council meeting about the misuse of an education code section in a censure resolution. And I believe if they had passed it that way, we would have had another lawsuit on our hands. So we need to be more careful. There's nothing that's a bigger waste of money than court costs and attorney's fees, especially when they're avoidable and resolvable. And then it's the relationships among our city council members and the communication with our council members and residents. For my part, I've tried to sit down or have a phone call with every sitting council member and every current candidate to try and start building a personal relationship. So we see each other as human beings and not as just potential political allies or adversaries.
One thing we need to change is the special interests. Special interests have taken precedence over resident priorities, and resident voices were not heard, but the special interests took place. It's to their greater profit and at the greater expense of our residents and our city and to our city's loss. I think the residents need to take center stage again when it comes to city council business decisions. I think it could get there. It just hasn't happened with the current council. As far as climate change and cleaner energy, Cyprus is not the leader when it comes to having sustainable developments, et cetera. We want to reduce the rolling blackouts. I think we could get further ahead. Let's think long term and let's build our communities up for success there. The lawsuits, drop them all. They were all avoidable.
Okay, we're going to start with Bonnie.
Mhm.
A resident shares that school traffic is a mess. What would you do to change this?
Well, it's a broad question, so it's hard to answer that. I know in certain areas, Walker, for instance, they put some, I'll call it street lights that stop traffic for students going across. I guess it depends. I don't know. I do know when I go by Oxford or I go by Cypress High School, when they get out, it's a bit busy. So I think personally, I would work with the school districts. And if there's a specific issue for a specific school, I would maybe help and understand what those issues are. And if there's maybe some alternative times or traffic patterns or whatever, but it's a little hard to say in general. I would just say, I think it would depend. And I think working with each of the school districts, and the school districts have been very good to work with. There's an excellent relationship. So I think it's just understanding what the problems are.
I agree. I'm the parent of a school-age child, and I can attest that the traffic at our school is actually fantastic. They have a wonderful system to facilitate traffic flow and to maintain safety for children as they're walking in the parking lot. So I think this is something that might vary from school site to school site. The best thing we can do is leverage our resources in the school site councils of these different locations and understand what their traffic flow looks like, and if there are some timing alternatives or solutions we could employ. There's nobody more aggressive than the volunteer PTA mom. She's smart, she's motivated, and she's got stuff to do. So if we put these questions in the hands of capable school site volunteers, we can resolve it. My biggest concern traffic wise in our streets is Lexington. I think that has the biggest backup when it's school pickup time. And I think that can be addressed just by working with the school on site.
Doing everything I can to make sure I am as low as possible. All right, here we go. So I'm going to agree with it's very similar sentiment. That is to say that each school does have its own set of problems. I can speak for Morris in particular, where it was really bad a couple years ago. I mean, it's still got its problems now. I mean, part of this has to do with simply the fact that, you know, these schools were built a long time ago and they're far exceeded as far as children going through them. I mean, for today's standards and California standards, I guess it's all right. But in reality, it's quite a bit of traffic going through there. Nobody uses the school bus anymore, not like they used to. So that being said, I mean, yeah, I agree. We're going to need to work with the PTAs. We're going to need to work with the school board. We need to work with each school, figure out whatever approach works best. It might even come down to staggering them. I know that when we do the staggered days, when it's, what do I say, open house and, early days and all those sorts of things, it seems to work a lot better. So that could be something there as well. I mean, I think it's just going to be sort of working hand in hand with the districts and, like she said, the PTA. I mean, ask the people who are there every day. They've probably got some ideas, but I'm happy to work with them and make it happen.
Hello. Well, I think we need to try harder. I recently learned that the city offered to build a drop-off zone at one of our local schools at the city's expense, and the school district refused because they didn't want to give up that chunk of their property. So I mean, we can all talk about how we need to partner the city and the school district, and they need to work together. We just really need council members and school board members who will focus on the problem until it's solved. And it's going to involve community members too. If you have kids at school, if you're part of the PTA, sometimes you just need to be persistent and show up and keep at the problem until you get it done.
Prior to some of the reorganizing of the parking lots, what all the schools have now is so much better than what they were. So definitely hats on the back to those who at least made an attempt to mitigate the traffic overflowing onto the city streets. When it comes to planning, I can't emphasize enough, get more expert minds on there. Out on the table, out on the planning. I believe in tightening up the partnership with council and the school board, because this is not just a school issue, a parent drop-off student issue, but it is a city issue. Traffic is a city issue, neighborhood issue. Let's get the partnerships going, and not even just with traffic, but staggering the start times. That could be another avenue, but that again takes planning and listening to the parents, listening to the neighbors. So thank you.
Okay, so I like the changes that were made at all the parking lots, and I know that strategy went into that. We do need to work with the schools, because if the drop-off zone is an opportunity for the district and the city to work together, then we should try it. I think we could pilot it in one school, and if it works, then move it on. I'd also like to encourage students to start walking again. All these parents line up, and it's just, it would be nice if we could work together to find some better solutions, including more walking. And then the bus schedule, I know we're very fortunate in my neighborhood. We have a bus that comes through and picks up the kids. However, it'd be nice to see a parent volunteer on the bus to make sure that the bus driver can keep focused on the driving, because I know sometimes the students do get a little rowdy. But other than that, I think that there are pieces to the puzzle, and we just need to come together for a plan.
Okay, we're going to start with Rachel. What is your plan to pay down the city pension debt of $50 million?
Right into the hot seat. Thanks. I think that we can comfortably say that with our budget surplus, we can take action and at least pay down half, if not the entire pension fund. The reality is the pension fund represents a commitment that we made to the people who put their lives on the line for us every single day. That's a commitment that we should be honoring. I don't think that this should be a huge controversy, but I do think, like with everything, this is something that requires support and input from the entire community. I think that some workshops and discussions can take place about how to best tackle this, whether we want to pay it all down, pay half down, or make some sort of strategic plan to stagger it over time. But it definitely needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed collaboratively.
I will have to echo that. I mean, in many ways, yes, it is quite a bit of money, but in reality, if we have 180 million in surplus, it's not like it's an insurmountable task. Obviously, we don't want to pull it from there, but if we think, and we work together as a community, I'm sure we can come up with different solutions. Right now we are in tumultuous times as far as the economy and all that. So we need to be very thoughtful about, what options we decide to invest in to try and counter that. Obviously, we need to have some sort of other fund that's, exercising along with it. There's a lot of different ways we could do that, but we need to get creative minds. We need to get, people who are really good with accounting and finance. That is not me, but in my role, I do, when I something I don't know, I know to go find talent. So we should be doing the same, and we can talk as, once we've come up with our options, we should kick it to the crowd. I mean, that's always my biggest thing is, I feel like as of late, we don't get as much say in what's going on. And I think we need to change that.
Well, how do we pay down the pension? I think we start by paying it down. And what I mean by that is I've talked to city staff about the situation, and what they've told me is the reason we don't necessarily pay it down, even though we can afford to, is that we think we can get a little bit better return on investment than investing it ourselves than the pension fund gets doing the investment. And that may be true, but in the Burke household, we're very worried about debt. Debt follows you around wherever you go. Debt keeps you up at night. And I'd feel a lot better if we had a bit less of a pension liability and paid it down, even if that meant we didn't get the maximum return on our investment, because I think it frees you up more to lower that liability.
When it comes to liability and debt, we should minimize that as much as possible. When it comes to pensions, it needs to be protected. Basically, it's something that you can't, with the size of the liability, you can't do that overnight. It should be done over time. But where are our investments? How is it performing? Who are the financial advisors? Where are the financial evaluations? I think we need to look at the bigger picture as far as all of the investments, all of the debts, and make sure that our pension is protected. So it's there when it's needed, and minimize the debt so that it's just not worth keeping debt around when it's not necessary. But there needs to be a proactive step and to eliminate that.
With with regards to paying down the debt, I agree that we should. I know that the city, there is an option, as David mentioned, they spoke about it at the Cypress Citizens Academy. And I think that we should definitely factor that in. I think that those that are affected, the people whose pensions were holding and investing on behalf of, I think they should have a vote as to what they think should be done, because it's their money. Do they want PERS to do it, or are they comfortable with the city continuing the way that it is? Yeah, there's 20 seconds. Okay. How we move forward too. I think we need to have a plan. I mean, are they going to continue this because it's just going to keep growing? Or do they have a plan to address it so that even if we do pay it down, what's the plan to go forward?
So on the pension liability, we make annual payments. So we are totally caught up to date on an annual basis. Like a broken record, I like local control. I like managing and like having our, I'll call it city, manage our liability. And so I am not necessarily in tune to take reserves that we've set aside for other things to go toward the pension liability. Do we absolutely need to understand it? Do we absolutely have to plan for it? No question. But my perspective is you manage it on an annual basis, you make sure you pay for it on an annual basis, and you understand what that liability is for years to come.
Okay, we'll start with Terry. Are you familiar with the history of why there is a traffic light at Cottonwood Way and Catella and no traffic light at Enterprise Drive? Residents of Ovation, what would you do to get a signal installed?
Ooh, for those of you that do Star Trek, this is the Kobayashi Maru right here. This is the no-win situation. So, I mean, as far as I can tell, you could try and time them, but there's no perfect solution here. The problem is that my understanding, the area of which that they're speaking of, that they would like to add this light, is actually part of Los Alamitos. Because my first thought was, well, why don't we just, as soon as I saw it, like everybody else there right before me was like, why don't we just do this? Well, it turns out you can't. So we're going to need to work really hand in hand with Los Alamitos and their district and everything else to figure out what we can do on that front if we're going that way. Otherwise, I'm not going to lie. I mean, you're sort of short on, it was kind of there. Like, I don't want to just, sound like a defeatist, but we're really going to have to do some intercity hand holding and, really have a barbecue and some beer, because otherwise I'm short on options. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, for those who may not be aware, the residents in Ovation can't turn left off Catella into their residence. They have to go up, do a U-turn, come back. It's more dangerous. It's not what anybody wants for their community. The thorny problem is one of the lanes of traffic is Cypress, and the other lanes of traffic on Catella are Los Alamitos. So it might be something where Cypress wants one thing, Los Alamitos wants another, and that's how we're in this situation. So like Terry said, some version of barbecue and a beer isn't a bad idea. It's really about figuring out what it will take to get this done. Sitting down with Los Alamitos council members or city staff and figuring out what we can do to resolve what's a dangerous situation that needs to be resolved for those residents.
I can't say enough. Planning. If this was planned at the beginning, there wouldn't be so many frustrated Ovation residents, and they are frustrated for good reason. As far as why there is no light, I understand that it is the neighbors across the way. They are Los Alamitos neighbors, and that there isn't a mutual agreement. I believe Los Alamitos Council may be open to it, if I understand correctly. But this is something that we just with discussions, getting the neighbors together, getting the councils together. This could possibly be solved. As far as the engineering of it, getting that extra light, whether it's a flashing light to coincide and be consistent with the one that's very close by, which a lot of those exiting Cottonwood Church use, basically to make sure that they are working together and not against each other. That's what I would think.
Okay, so in my talks with the Ovation residents, they can't turn left onto Catella. And Los Alamitos is not interested in partnering to pay half of to put a signal there. And Cottonwood has a signal, but they will block off the entrance from Enterprise, I think it is, so that the Ovation residents can't go and utilize that left turn signal. A couple of things that we've talked about is making some changes, because right now it's just like one big lane, but you can't turn left, you can only turn right. So making a separate lane so that you can actually turn left out onto Catella is one option. More negotiations with Cottonwood. If we do put in a signal, just make it so that it works for Cypress and not for Los Alamitos. And that was some of the talk that happened at the traffic commission meeting.
Yeah, as everybody said, 5 of the 6 lanes belong to Los Alamitos. So the one lane, positive thing, the one lane for Cypress is very well paved. So if you ever notice that, you will notice that on Catella. So stay in the very right lane issue if you're going west. But that said, the challenge is even from like Cottonwood, I guess that's Lexington, all the way over the racetrack, you are not able to turn left at all. If you go down, you will see no left turn, no left turn, no left turn. So Los Alamitos has been very difficult. I don't know what the solution is, because there's been a lot of smart people that have worked this. However, as everybody knows, if there's something that they want, maybe we could have some trades or something, and I don't know what that is, but it's got to be something that they want so that you can do a trade and saying, okay, you want to get into Trader Joe's? Then you do this. So there may be some options there, guys. I don't know. So anyway, that's it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to concur with the majority up here. The reality is we understand that it's a safety issue and that should be available for our citizens in Ovation. I guess the old saying is, if you can't go left, you can only be right. I guess that could be the case here. But the reality is they do need a left-hand turn. The only way out of this situation is to build our relationship with Los Alamitos and try to find some sort of a mutual accord. I think that there's a possibility, but we've got to get to know the city council there, understand their needs, understand how to work with them better. And I think with dialogue and openness and collaboration, we can make it happen.
Okay, this one will start with David. Are you able to commit to the time and effort required to be an effective member of the team and be prepared for meetings? Are you able to commit to the time and effort required to be an effective member of the team and be prepared for meetings?
Okay, I think we have enough juice. One more time, Lisa. Yes.
Oh, I'm good with the question, if that's okay.
Testing.
All right. I'm about as hard a worker as you're ever going to meet. I got through 3 years of UCLA law school, winning the moot court and mock trial competitions. I started multiple businesses from nothing. I started a nonprofit that fights against big money in politics from nothing. And to the point where we wrote this 25-page report that grades every city in Orange County on their campaign finance laws. And it's been covered by the Orange County Register. And some of the cities in Orange County have taken up new proposals to change their laws because of the work that we put in. So I take, as I said earlier, I take this responsibility very seriously. The biggest challenge for me, I think, is balancing something I'm so passionate about with being a dad and being a husband. And I've had to let some things go, frankly. I don't write as much as I used to. I haven't been playing softball lately, but that's because I'm prioritizing doing good in our city. So yes, I can definitely put in the work.
The answer is yes. Definitely being prepared for meetings is critical. It makes for a more smoother meeting. Getting questions answered or getting questions out and answered beforehand helps. But the meetings are for deliberation, and that's where you partner, you collaborate, you see where everyone is at and try to come to a meeting of the minds. But one thing that really also helps with smoother meetings is having policies that everyone supports, such as bidding practices. This has come up where a lot of residents have spoken up about not going to bid when it should have gone to bid. These are policies that could be nailed down so that meetings can go more smoothly and there's not so much contention on the council and the meetings go as long as they have. So, yes.
I can make the time. One of the reasons that I waited until my youngest was in college was so that I'm an empty nester, so I've got time on my hands. And it fills my time so I can be doing something productive. Being prepared for meetings is imperative, and I would absolutely devote the time to be prepared as well as the time to be at the meetings. One of the things that I feel is important also is, as Helen was saying, if we can have more communication with the residents so that you're not as upset, and hopefully we can take care of that, and so that you don't have to come to the meetings and be upset. It really hurts. And I hope that we can make changes so that the residents are more content with what's going on with decisions and policies and programming.
So today I'm on the school board, and it requires preparation before you go in. And especially as president, you have to lead the meeting as well, which means you have to be very prepared on what the agenda is and kind of understand where maybe some of the issues are. And so I'm for city council. I'm very prepared to do that. Doing it today on school board, although a little less activity, but I'm prepared, and I am retired. So I have a little bit more flexibility in my time, and I'm willing to make that commitment.
I think I can absolutely do it. And I think campaigning is actually great practice. It forces all of us to balance what we're working on as far as our career endeavor alongside campaigning and getting our long division homework done at the same time. That's an eye roll over there. I think that I'm well poised to step further out of work. I am self-employed, but I have staffed adequately to make sure that after the first of the year, if I am elected, I have lots of people in place to help run the business effectively without having to be so present. And then my other commitments, things I'm volunteering for, are all things that can expand or contract. When we have our meetings, requests for volunteer time are called for. If you have the time, you give it. If you don't, you learn to say no. Saying no is a tough thing for all of us, but I think I finally managed it. I think that my business background, training at a Fortune 5 very early in my career, taught me to always be prepared for meetings. I worked for a very tough financial services company, and if you were noticeably unprepared in a meeting, you were asked to leave. It's humiliating. I've never done it since. I definitely feel I can make this commitment.
Yes, I mean, I feel like everybody was very long-winded. Yeah, I can do this, no problem. I have a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage. I wear a lot of hats. Yeah, I mean, I'm a baseball dad. I do all the things, but all these things can be juggled. I work from home. Everything is project-based. You know, all my side businesses can be throttled up or down as needed. I can always hire help. Yeah, I've been looking at getting a person who's maybe in his first or second year an EE degree and throw him in my garage, and he can finish his degree while just working on my projects and making money on the side. All these things, whatever, I'll let aside, no problem. I see no issues.
Okay, we're going to start with Helen. What is the city doing regarding sustainability? How has the city reduced its carbon footprint?
Now, there is a multifamily development right across the street from the tennis courts and the Orange County Library. It had impressive features, amenities. I believe solar panels, basically less of a footprint there. I'd like to see more of that. As far as where we're at, I'm not so sure that it's consistent with all new developments. You can go back a number of years and those kind of features may be absent. I think that just needs to be set in a plan so that when new developers are submitting their proposals, that is a requirement. I think that's how we're going to be more of a leader as far as a trailer in sustainable development with housing, as well as businesses, as well as rebuilding. And that would be part of our planning department. When people are going through plan check and building permits, see that they're implementing that.
Okay, so I know the city has done a lot of electronic, like the app, like Rachel mentioned earlier, which is great. They're doing a lot more electronic versus paper. And then with regards to solar, I know we're very new in our city, but hopefully the school districts, I mean, if you look at Los Alamitos, all their parking lots are covered. And it would be nice if our school district could do some of that as well. All the newer buildings will be smart buildings. And so that's going to reduce our carbon footprint. And then as the business park modernizes, it will need to, because it's a requirement by the state and federal government. We're also looking at reclaimed water, from what I understand, for the Arnold Park redevelopment. And so hopefully that will be the start of the reclamation water. And then it's just helping residents that have older homes to do what they can to modernize as well. And I know solar is a big thing. A lot of people are looking into it.
Just a couple of things. One is when they built Lexington Park, one of the fields is artificial turf. And so from a standpoint of maintenance and everything, makes it a lot easier. There's no watering. They would have done both, but there needed to be a trial in terms of real grass versus artificial turf. So they have made a step in that direction. There's also the charging stations for those that are doing electric cars. They've just put those in at Lexington Park. So they've made it easier for some residents, especially if they need that. Almost every month, or at least every quarter, the Golden State Water comes in, talks a little bit about what things could do. So my last thing, I think, is honestly probably education and helping people understand what they can do. I heard solar, and maybe there is some things from a water standpoint of greater things that we can educate our residents in terms of things that we can do.
I think Cyprus did a really great job of early adoption of trash and recycling many years ago. I'm talking back in the 90s. When I left for college, I was a college freshman. I went to school out of state. Nobody recycled where we were. And my roommate thought I was absolutely nuts when on Thanksgiving break, I took home a literal bag of plastic recyclable bottles to California. They thought I was crazy. I've always been a big proponent of being environmentally conscious. I think that in Cyprus, we've seen the development of a new program to deal with organic waste. It's that little green basket that you have that you're supposed to put your shavings from cucumbers and things like that in. I know, I see the faces. Change is hard. I totally get it. But it's definitely something the city's doing to make an effort to be in compliance with reducing our carbon footprint. I think a requirement for solar will be legislated by the state before we know it, and new developments will be required. So there's not much the city can or would do about that. But there's also a city renovation program that's going on now that makes funds available for homeowners, or makes changes available for homeowners to reinvest in their property. And things like converting to solar might be a possibility to use those funds.
I'm going to pick up right where she left off on that one, because I think it's important. Golden State Water does offer rebates and things right now. I was just looking into this for Cheryl Succulents, actually. They do offer rebates and things if you're going to redo your front lawn. So, as far as rebates and things like that, I think we should be leveraging on our, the beauties that we have, private water, things like that. We should be leveraging on those people, private trash. They're not state or government. So we can leverage on them to see what kind of rebates we can push out of them. It gives us a little bit of creativity there, which is kind of nice. As far as the city itself, I mean, we've got water-friendly islands. We do have reclaimed water coming into the city now. It came in basically through Forest Lawn. We are now piping off of it, from my understanding, reading through the all the planning and stuff that we have, all the paperwork. And really within the next year or two, we should have it going through most of the city. So we're good there. Yeah, we've been seeing more artificial turf at the parks. We've been seeing, I don't know, let's see here. You know, the the EV chargers going in at parks. I suppose that's green, right? You know, for those of you with EV cars, I haven't seen anybody there yet. We've got smart buildings. I mean, in many ways, we are following state mandates.
I think my fellow candidates have done a good job of summarizing a lot of the things, moving in the direction of electric vehicles, drought resistant landscaping. I would like to see, as Rachel touched on, the city incentivize residents through programs. I actually just met a local business owner who does drought resistant landscaping for residences. If there were a way she could partner with the city and we could, have education about local businesses that offer those types of services. I think that would be beneficial. A personal issue, and this is somewhat related, I believe, is I want to see more shade and trees throughout Cyprus and in a lot of our local parks. The direction we seem to be heading in is with more heat waves. And as the parent of a 2.5-year-old who spends a lot of time at our local parks, I think we all want to be able to go there and have fun with shade structures and more trees and not worry about our health and getting overheated. So I think a plan to plant a lot more trees throughout the city would be beneficial.
Okay, we are down to our last question. We're going to start with Kerry. The city of Cyprus recently paid for a statistically valid community survey. One result from that survey showed an overwhelmingly majority thought Cyprus was a good or great place to live. When asked for what should be changed, they said nothing. Do you believe the survey results accurately reflect the viewpoint of Cyprus residents? Why or why not?
I actually do. Earlier I had the question, what do I change in Cyprus, right? So I had to reach. We're very, very fortunate. Cyprus is such a well-maintained city. And there really aren't a lot of things that we need to change. So even though that community survey, I think there was only 750 respondents. Okay, we could have increased it, but I don't think that you would have gotten much of a difference because everywhere you go, people are happy. The pickleball courts, which I just went to just recently, there's people come from other cities to play on our courts because we have our players have sportsmanship and people are nice. And so I think that is just reflective across the board. And so even though I would have preferred that instead of hiring a consultant that they would have worked with the Cyprus Community College to have the social department do something instead.
Yeah, I'm good with the survey as well for the reasons that most have already been described. Cyprus has been a good place. And I think recently, in Monday's meeting, they presented a survey that they did with seniors and granted a different captive audience, but the feedback was excellent. It really talked about the programs and the services that we provide. So granted, it was a smaller portion, but again, very consistent with the messaging in terms of generally it's a great place to live. So yes.
Well, you couldn't have a bigger fan of Cyprus than me. So I'm going to say that overall, I think residents are really happy. I would question the sample size since it's only 700 responses out of the size community that we have. What I will say is that Cyprus, as the old mantra, is still a great place to work, live, and play. I think that everybody in Cyprus, for the most part, is able to have beautiful roads, beautiful streets, peaceful homes, a great police force, amazing schools. Small improvements aside, I think overall the climate in Cyprus is really great and really warm. However, we do need to do a better job of getting information from people that are not the satisfied norm and understanding what some of the needs of residents are that aren't responding to these surveys. Are they not responding because they don't feel they'll be heard? Even if they do, that's a question we should be asking ourselves. I think with more information, we can get closer to a big picture of Cyprus, but overall, yes, I think it's just a wonderful place.
Yes, I believe that the statistics that are shown there are quite good. There's no doubt in my mind. In fact, I think that, you guys, I don't need a list of things that are good. You all know it. But that being said, there are people who are unhappy. You know what I mean? There are people who do feel that there are issues. I believe a lot of that actually stems from what's going on in the dais right now. I believe that stems from the council itself. I believe that people are unhappy because, as I stated earlier, when you have people up top who are feuding and, feuding because they feel like they're, other people feel as though they're not being paid attention to, they're not being heard. And when that happens, you leave room for bad actors. You leave room for doubt. You leave room for rumors. You leave room for people making, filling into blanks with usually probably some of the worst things you can possibly think about. We have to do better on that front. I believe if we are communicating better with our community and reaching out to them and working more hand in hand with you all, I believe a lot of that goes away. But as the statistics of the thing itself, yes, I do believe that by and large, anybody here really unhappy with their parks, with their services, you like your police? Yeah. I think our issues are more holistic.
So yes, Cyprus is a great city, and I believe the survey reflects that. I have been conducting my own informal survey that's called Knocking on Doors to Meet Voters. And I think the overwhelming sentiment is that people love living in Cyprus, but there have been some things in the past year or two that they're concerned about. And I think it's justifiable. You can love your city, but have some disagreements with some of the decisions the city council has made, whether it's the trash contract, which I don't believe should have been extended to 2037 without an opportunity to get competitive bids. I've met many residents who feel the same way. And as I believe Terry mentioned, the hostility on the city council. And it's not that it's not about which council member they agree or disagree with. They just want to see our council members get along with each other better and spend less time attacking each other and more time focusing on the issues that residents are concerned about. So I think that's a priority for all of us on this stage here.
I feel the part of the survey that does reflect the city overwhelmingly, the majority is they enjoy and love Cyprus. This is a great place to live, work, and have recreation. Cyprus has a strength with that when it comes to youth as well as adult recreation, as well as seniors and the disabled, the special needs community. But as far as the sample size, it's been mentioned, it was 700 plus surveys, respondents out of about 50,000 residents in Cyprus. That with the out of, and 94% of that 1.4 or 1% or so, there was no quality control as far as who's responding. Are there repeat same respondents? Basically, when it comes to what are those things that needs to improve, I believe it may not accurately reflect our city and the needs.
Okay, we're going to adjust the camera before we get to our closing statements.
Yeah.
Two minutes. And then use that 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for your responses and participation tonight. We will now wrap up our program with a 2-minute closing statement from candidate in the reverse order than the beginning. So our first closing statement will be from David Burke.
Well, thank you again to the Chamber for hosting this event. Thank you to everyone who participated and submitted questions. I think this is a really valuable thing to get the chance to understand your council candidates' personalities a little bit better, how they think, what their priorities are. I'm glad we have events like this, and I wish we had even more. They are limited in the sense that it's us talking, and we can all talk about how great a job we're going to do, but how do you tell the difference between 6 or 7 candidates who are all saying the right things? And so I think as a voter, there are 2 things you really need to think about before you cast your ballot. First is who can do this job well? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a job. you're voting on candidates who you're essentially hiring to do the job of being your city council member. And you need to look at the background and qualifications and experience. And I think with my background as someone who's run multiple businesses, balanced budgets, someone who's an attorney and understands legal issues, I'm not going to be in over my head when we're discussing a complicated contract or legal theories that the city's considering, or cases that are coming our way. So I think you need to keep that in mind. I've also served on a neighborhood council, so I know what it means to represent a community. The second thing is, who is really going to fight for you? And with my background, fighting against special interest money in politics, this is a passion of mine. I don't do it because it's lucrative. I do it because I care about government working for residents. I've spoken at more council meetings in the past year than any of my fellow council candidates, with the exception of one sitting council member. And that's because I care. I've been putting in the work and studying the issues and speaking out against the trash contract, for more transparency, trying to keep the city out of legal trouble. And that's what I'll continue to do as your council member. Thank you.
I'll just kind of riff this one as well. I think more than anybody's stances up here tonight, we really want to think about each candidate's style and ethics. Can they constructively work with others and find solutions when at first, may appear an impossible task? Do they value the opinion of their constituents? Are they willing to vote in a direction that they may not individually even agree with when it's demonstrated a large majority of citizens feel that way? That's something you really got to ask yourself of everybody here. I mean, do you really, you got to think about that. I tend to look at and scrutinize things through the lens of individual liberty and local control. But that doesn't mean that every conclusion that I arrive at is correct. This is why I plan to bring up a ledger on my website of everything I vote for. I'll put what it is, why I voted for it, and I'll let you guys decide, because I'm sure that somewhere in there, I'm going to make a decision, or I'm not going to think about a particular angle that will be brought up to me. I'll be, wow, all right, that's, going forward, we can definitely think about that differently. I think that's something we're desperately missing right now. I think there's a major disconnect. I don't believe that the people are being heard. There's a lot of unilateral decisions that are being made. And even when it's something that I agree with, I kind of think to myself, but I didn't get asked. And that's important, because although you may agree with that particular decision that time, who's to say you won't agree with the next one? And again, you're not being asked. That's a problem. And I believe that's the same thing that's creating a lot of the dissension that we're seeing right now. A lot of the turmoil that we're seeing with everybody in the, in the audience and just across our, across our entire city. Our community is sort of falling apart. We've got a lot of divides that are needless. We can bridge these things. We can heal these divides. I mean, we keep looking at things very like us versus them, because these people are making these unilateral decisions. So before you know it, you're sort of deciding on your leader. Well, I agree with this person because they make, they follow my line. It's not the way to do this. It's really not. This should be about us as a community. I'm not anything special. I'm not omnipotent, nor is anybody else that's currently up there. You elected us. We're just sort of the chieftains or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm still going home with my wife and kids. I'm still having a barbecue just like you guys. And I think we should be doing that with you guys more. We need to be more connected. If we did that, I think there'd be a lot more humanity in it. And that's my time.
All right. I also want to thank the Chamber for putting on this great event. We have a lot of issues facing our city, as you guys can see. And the good news is we're all still sitting here. So obviously this is a group of dedicated individuals who are really looking for this job. The good news is right now in this election cycle, we have the opportunity for 3 new seats. On a board of 5, that's a majority opinion. So if there ever was a time for positive change in Cyprus to be possible, it's right now. Here's what I hear as I'm going out and campaigning and meeting residents. I'm hearing some consistent themes. They're tired. They're tired of not being listened to. They're tired of not being able to approach the bench, so to speak. And they're tired of not being able to influence decisions and direction. They feel disenfranchised. Votes at the dais seem like a foregone conclusion, and attempts at community involvement and workshops seem forced and false. They're upset when they approach the dais. They say things in Cyprus City Council meetings like, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm saddened by what's going on. I'm embarrassed by the behavior of our council. These are really serious words to be using. These people are ready for change as I'm ready for change, and they're looking for a new voice. I'd like to be that voice. I would like to extend office hours to be more accessible and be of service to you. I'd like to be out in the community with my fellow council members at events that matter to you, football games, festivals, events where your children are performing. I'd like to bring a new energy to City Hall, one that's open and collaborative, respectful, and focusing on bringing in solutions and ideas with ancillary committees and workshops of our residents so that they can provide some voice and some input. Rather than shutting down dissenting opinions, I'd like to listen to them and understand what's behind them. My commitment is to remain open, engaged, responsive, and to advocate for you. I want to re-energize City Hall. With all of these issues, you'll find a candidate whose words resonate with you. But what I encourage you to remember is Cyprus is a city of intelligence, common sense, and great heart. Now is your chance to make a change that you want to see. Please take that chance and vote on November 8th and make a change in our direction for everyone.
Don't touch the screen. So I'm passionate about Cyprus. My mom and dad had a dairy here, so it's a great city to live in and raised in. My community involvement, and I've talked about that, really lent me the importance of being engaged, of listening to the community and understanding it, as well as balancing the interests of the majority. I do support the residents to have a voice for all 5 council members. I think that's very important. These are leaders that are leading the city for years to come. My priorities, you've heard of them already. I work with facts. There's a lot of social media information out there. I don't read it. I deal with facts, and that's how I make my decisions. I'm an authentic leader, and I'm hoping that's demonstrated through everything I do in the community, between what I do at the board, at the school board, what I do for the women's club, as well as I do in my ministry. My philosophy is you can tell a lot about a leadership style, but what a person does day to day. So I'm hoping through that commitment and that involvement in the community that you can see who I am as a person. I am running for city council to use the leadership experience that I have and really to preserve the values and characteristics of the city. I encourage you to pick up literature outside. I think everybody's going to have literature. I also have business cards. Feel free to call me if you have any questions. And I ask for your vote if I meet the requirements. So thank you.
So this has been a great experience, and I do thank the chamber, and I also thank the sponsors, and then also Cypress College. Oh, can you not hear me again?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, now, okay, I can hear myself. Okay. Okay. So since 2020, I've been participating in as many different things as I can to learn about city government, about our community, and to be able to come to this election in 2022 to get your vote so that I can work on your behalf. I look forward to working with a new city council and making peace across the dais, right? And I think that we can do that. And as Rachel said, we've got 3 votes, and it's nice that we still have those 3 votes because we do still have at-large voting. I also have an action plan, and part of that is preserve our quality of life. With the state mandate, we are going to have our utilities and public services will be impacted. So we want to make sure that we're prepared as we do grow with new development, new housing. I also want to maintain public safety, which includes that special resource officer, and working on the recruitment for new police officers. I'd also like to work on the neighborhood watch program because, as you know, we're a small city, 6.67 square miles, but within that there are a lot of neighborhoods, and crime is on the rise. So we need to, as residents, also do our part. And I would love to take Brittany's plan and share it throughout the city, and to partner with the police departments that if neighborhood watch is something that you want on your block, it can be done. And lastly, the Cypress Business Park, you know, the recent losses, we want to work on that modernization so that we can bring business, new business, big and small, to Cypress so that we can raise those sale taxes and have just more opportunity for people in surrounding cities to come and see what's so great about Cyprus, like they do with pickleball. So I do hope that you'll consider me for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you again, everyone, for making the big trip up the stairs and Cyprus Chamber of Commerce and the college for this great event. I would love to hear from each and every one of you in this room more of what you believe is great about Cyprus and what do you feel could improve. I feel so far that I've seen no problem that's been voiced has been too complicated to solve. But the big question is, why haven't some relatively more simple problems been solved? Where's that going? The residents' voices don't feel like they're being heard. Going back to the survey, 700 were overwhelmingly positive, but how about in certain neighborhoods? Can you actually find maybe 700 residents that are pretty upset because they voiced problems such as those by the city yard? What was going on there has caused, it's been a health and safety issue. But whose interest was being protected? Whose interests were being ignored? Residents, retirees, that's a place at a time where they want to live in peace, where those retirees are even taking care of their elderly parents whose health is ailing. These are the kind of things that were on the responsibility of the city. But what happened when those voices were made? That's what we really need to restore for our residents is respect. With respect coming from council, respecting the residents, I don't think we would have had the criticisms or residents being called out by name, even some of our minutes reflecting some of the humiliation and seeing what the dysfunction on our council. I want to uplift families, and I think we could do that. Thank you.
Thank you once again, candidates, for your participation. Great job, everyone, and good luck to all of you. Well-deserved clapping, yeah. And thanks to Cypress College for hosting this live event and our other sponsors who made this event possible. The Cyprus Chamber of Commerce appreciates everyone watching out there for taking the time to learn about our local candidates. Our local city council plays an important role in the future of the city of Cyprus, and your vote on the local level is tremendously important. We've seen city council races won and lost by just a handful of votes in many cities throughout Southern California over the years. So get out and vote and be informed about every seat you are voting for. You can make a difference. Good evening, and thank you again for participating.